Um, Parry Talks,
Parry Talks.
episode 20, I think. Whether it's episode 20 or not, don't shit on me. Today's a sick episode because when I first made and started thinking about the podcast, someone told me, make a list of everyone that you think would have a cool story, or everyone that you think has an identity community-wise in your scene. And I made that list, and on that list was the Pelvis crew / Pelvis Records. And
Cool.
It's excellent to have Mr. Pelvis Records, Transit State, or you could call him Ryan as well, on the show. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. And there's other Mr. Pelvises too. I'm just one of them.
I'll say that you're Mr. Pelvis Records, if that's
cool.
fair. Anyway,
oh no.
Firstly, to begin, did you cop anything on Bandcamp last Friday, with the big wave of the fees?
Yeah. I got that Homeboys release from Lozano and Mr. Ho, which is awesome. I got some random stuff from this guy that used to be called Curtis Vodka. Now he's just called Curtis with a double S. He did stuff in like 2007, 2008, and he's kind of resurfaced. He did a cover of Larry Heard, Can You Feel It? Which is really cool. And I think it's made a bit more to like whip in a more modern setting, a bit more bass. And some other bits. I can't really remember. It was really late and I just went on a mad spree.
It's always a bit like that as well, because I was just like, all right, what? Just the first 5 posts on my socials about new music can get my money. Yeah. That's how I thought about it. Otherwise, I'm going to start thinking too much about it.
To look at all the labels and artists you follow and think, I've got to get through that in 24 hours.
And I've got to buy it as well. Like,
it's really bad too. I think I left it too late and I clicked purchase like after the 24 hours it ended.
We won't talk about that. Okay. Yeah, and that's like the beauty of buying music, is it doesn't feel like you're buying anything. Like in terms of money, it's like, oh, $3 here, $6 here, $12 here. Yeah. And then you check the PayPal receipts and it's just like PayPal, yeah. Bandcamp. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. But yeah, just want to, and also as well, I'll put my pick in.
It's way better than buying vinyl.
Exactly.
Yeah, it used to be a lot worse. Checking out stuff on Discogs, and then you got the shipping and stuff. Yeah, obviously adds up.
Yeah, I got a vinyl in like yesterday, and it came like so warped and so bent, like UPS like mail had just like destroyed it. Like,
yeah, I've been seeing a bit of this on. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's the box
for it. Stories lately. I don't know what's going on.
British Royal Mail, mate.
Was it ruined?
Yeah, it's all warped. So I'm going to put it in the oven later. See, with a couple pieces of glass on it. Yeah. Apparently that's the remedy.
Skydiver in Melbourne, they do a disc flattening service. They've got a machine.
Oh, I think something else do it as well, but I'm not sure because of the COVID stuff. But back to you. Right now, obviously, there's a fair bit going on. You brought forward a couple Pelvis releases, also producing as well, and also being an influencer too. So what have you found taking up most of your time during the whole COVID sort of chaos?
I've been working from home, which is fortunate. I got uni, doing a music degree at Melbourne Uni, so doing that as well. So lots of zooming between those two things. And then, we pushed ahead DJ Tools 3, and then me and River Yarra had a split release, which we put out digitally. It's just so much easier to put stuff out digitally and quicker. And we've got a couple of vinyl releases coming up from Australians who we're super excited for. Just got the test pressings behind me there. And lots of emailing back and forth there with pressing plants and distro and stuff. But yeah, the videos with Power Tools, that's what I'm always looking forward to doing. So it's super lucky. My uni tutor, who's like course director, I was in a Zoom call with him, and he's like, show me your work so far and we'll chat about it. And I apologized and was like, I don't really have any work. I've just been making these silly Instagram videos, and I'll show you one if you like. So next thing, he's like laughing, going, you could submit this as your music folio, like your assessment piece for this semester. So I've been building up these videos, and my 16-minute folio will just be 16 of these power tool bangers.
That is so brilliant. And and like we'll get to the more comedic note, and we'll go to a serious note. Just want to touch on it. How is it learning, and I don't know your background musically, how is it going to school and learning music compared to, say, when you were starting out as a producer and that sort of thing? Like, how's the tertiary education lens of music different to what you saw it as before?
Well, you can edit this silence out while I think of an answer. For me, like it's there's so many roadblocks when producing music. Like so many times where I'll overwork a track or not know what it's missing, or just really it's really easy to overthink stuff. And I found going to uni was really good to find mentors who were there to give that feedback in the moment and just keep the ball rolling with ideas. And yeah, it was weird. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to write pop music, club music. I thought I had to like choose. So yeah, like this degree I'm doing is super sick. It's really well rounded. There's a lot of music harmony stuff, looking at Bach chorales and really learning like harmony in depth. But then you'll go to the next class and it'll be like an Ableton tute, and then the next one will be like improv class where you get up and just make a goose of yourself, just bashing away on something. So yeah, it's very well rounded, and like a lot of what I got out of it is more like creativity and craft skills, not so much music specific, but like how to jump on ideas and develop them and know when you finished a piece and when to move on.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you can really spin out if you're trying to finish tracks and you can't, and you don't have the knowledge
Exactly. Yeah.
of knowing when to stop.
Yeah. I just thought I'd ask that because a lot of people talk about how like having that extra structure, and I don't know if you relate to the phrase of like I feel like the better a song is the closer I thought it in my head. And a lot of people talk about that, like being able to copy what's in your head to the Ableton or
Oh yeah,
and yeah, I found that such an
yeah,
interesting point.
like that intuitive way of doing it. I was probably good at it ages ago, and then after years of not practicing and writing stuff all the time, I kind of got overly critical of my own stuff and overthought it. But yeah, like if you find that it's easy to jump in intuitively and just like bang out these ideas, and that's something you should keep practicing. Yeah.
Anyway, now a bit of a laugh. I call it backyard techno. I think it's funnier as backyard techno. But it's funny how there's obviously the tools reference constantly, and I don't know if it's a hobby of yours to be workshopping with like building stuff, because I feel like it's always like just randomly sawing wood or something on the socials and that sort of thing. So it's all this like brilliantly, this crazy world has sort of come full circle, and now you're making songs out of literal tools. So how did the first one of those even come about? Was it just pure meme factor? Was it a lot more work than you expected as well?
Yeah, it came about from insanity of lockdown. So Clara, my girlfriend who I live with, she's amazing at making stuff and building things. So she's got a lot of tools, and we started a project to build a back shed, which we thought was going to be the answer to having a small house, but it wasn't. So we're moving house now. Anyway, we were there one day just getting started on some cupboards, and um, I'm kind of useless with building stuff, so just started filming everything, and then was like, that hairdryer kind of sounds like um, the that rave sound on, I think it's an Alpha Juno. You know, the classic like
Yeah.
Prodigy or um, and so yeah, I just ran inside and dumped it all on my computer and made it into a track. Um, and as I've kept working on them, I've realized the shitter the better in terms of quality. So like just embracing that they are lo-fi, and it's a really good constraint. Stops me overworking the tracks.
Yeah, and I think that from the outside they look like just, really quick shit posting effectively. But in reality, like if you really think about what's going on, it probably takes heaps of work to do. Um
Yeah,
as they've gone in, have you underestimated how much work it takes? Because you're pretty much building full tracks and doing field recording fully.
yeah, like it's more about the idea. Like the vacuuming and Centrelink one is just like, most of the time that went into that is me just staring at the wall thinking of inspiration, like thinking of a good idea, and then yeah, it can be lo-fi and silly, but it's kind of like captures what's happening right now and it's super topical. So that one kind of popped off the hardest.
Yeah, and it'll be super interesting to look back on everyone's socials now, like all the DJs and artists, and seeing that like as a sort of time capsule for what everyone was doing during this time.
Yeah,
Um, and like it'll be there forever as well. So you'll see all the mixes everybody was doing, all the
yeah,
funny like Zoom ideas and all the backyard techno ideas, that sort of thing that people are
yeah,
doing now. It's going to
exactly.
be archived forever, and it's super cool that that's how
Yeah,
it's going to be.
it's weird to think about. I want to keep it rolling though, like the beginning of this story, keep it going, because obviously the situation might change, and yeah, the tracks will keep being these. I've just find it's a really good constraint, like keeping it real lo-fi saves me overworking the tracks in Ableton or whatever. And I want to do like a club release, so I want to put the
Yeah,
tracks out on Bandcamp with like full like club versions,
yeah,
um, proper
intros
drum,
and
proper,
everything.
yeah, like everything, like full 5 minute tracks with all the sections and stuff, DJ friendly versions.
Do you think you could? Is the end goal of this to take it on tour and play club shows fully, full field sampled, full
That's
tool?
exactly the idea. Yeah, have a merch stand with power tools and stuff, goggles and earmuffs.
Imagine buying the vinyl for that. Just you just put it on and just scraping noises, and then before you know it, yeah, that's brilliant. I love that, and I'm sort of surprised that no one's tried jigging your idea in terms of higher ups. Like a big corporate hasn't come and stolen it and put it on an ad campaign, so it's still very pure.
Yeah, I had some DMs like companies wanting me to do a track for them for like an ad,
Yeah.
uh, but I didn't. I didn't want to sell out that quick.
Why was Doors Plus
Oh, why? Why
the
what?
one? Why was Doors Plus the
It
the
was just
the
an ad
one?
that would come in and out of my head. Like I'm sure everyone who grew up watching TV, that ad, that jingle has been around for like 30 years. So it was in my head one day, and I started coming up with that because mashups used to be my thing. I used to, when Ableton kind of first came out, and Girl Talk was happening and stuff, I was obsessed with making mashups. So that was kind of that part of my brain firing up again. But yeah, they reached out in the DMs too, and they shared my track and made me like a branded content partner on Instagram, which I have no idea what. I just approved it because I thought it was funny. Um, no exchange of money or doors has happened yet.
Damn, not a single door was harmed in the making. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love. Yeah, I think it's just hilarious. Like the first one, when I saw the first one go up, I sent it to like everybody. I was like, "This is about to go. Like this is about to go off," and everyone was like, "This is the best thing ever," because they sound like. And I think it's really cool how it plays on the tropes of just like a classic
Yeah,
dance song, and like all the familiar elements of a dance song that when we listen to it in clubs or, you know, big WAV files and that sort of thing, we overthink it sometimes, but there's so many similar concepts and so many similar angles in every one of these songs. And to see it broken down by like a saw cutting through like plywood is the most brilliant thing, I think.
Yeah, we all used to play real lo-fi MP3s in the club when we started. So I've never really been a purist in terms of like super high production standards.
Exactly.
I definitely appreciate it, but yeah, like it's more about the fun and the energy.
Exactly.
It's more important than like super high quality.
Yeah, and I think that it's showing with the, even though there is like considerable meme factor with the the video, sorry, blanked out there randomly. With the videos, there's a lot of it, like the tracks are cool and they sound cool, and it shows that, like, especially in our sort of rave scene where it's more about the idea and the energy than it is the, you know, how your kick sounds through 4 different speaker settings. And it's a testament to that, I think, which is super cool.
Yeah, I think house, that's the spirit of house music. I just realized I've had this little thing in my ear for decoration the whole time. It's been coming out of my computer. I'm gonna
It still sounds pretty clean. Oh no, I've lost you now. Yeah, I've pressed pause and play. That's a nice little segue, a little break. And I want to talk on gnome knowledge as well, because obviously there's like the meme, but also like Transit State is a real project that does tie on a lot of sounds, which I think are really cool coming out of Australia right now. And that like nature inspired Australiana electronic, like down tempo, but still groovy and like melodic. I don't like, there's a genre of music I think that a lot of people listening will understand what I'm trying to get at. And Riviera is pretty much the absolute king of that. I just wanted to get a bit more knowledge from a pure curiosity standpoint of what the Transit State project is, how it started, because it's obvious you've been producing for a while and hasn't been a lot of output from you. But just wanted more intrigue on what that project is and where it's going.
It's just a name for whatever I put out. I don't want to box it in. Like, I just put out that one with Riviera, and that's tracks that I never thought I would put out on my first release. It's like 2 works that I did for like a soundtrack to a short film and a dance piece. That Unseen track is made for dancers, which I did last year at the end of year for my uni folio. So another one is just like a bedroom kind of demo, because all I was listening to was city pop, and I thought they would all be club tracks on my first release, but they're not. So it's just a name for whatever I put out at the moment. It comes from State Transit, if that wasn't obvious. Spent a lot of time on the L90.
To be fair, and people can pay me out for this all they want, but I was thinking, like, I just did like a quick Google, because doing a quick Google of any artist, you can find some absolute gems, because sometimes the algorithm will push something out from 2014. So I put in Transit State and everything was State Transit that came up, and I'm like, oh no, I've fallen for the bait here, because I had no idea it was State Transit. And then I thought, hang on, River Yarra River. So I'm like, there's a connection here. And it just spun me. Like, I was like, oh no, what have I fallen for? I've
like, to just elaborate a tiny bit, it was a name that I decided I needed when I started working on a live project. So only done like a handful of shows with that, but I liked the challenge of coming up with some kind of live thing where I could play in clubs. And the thing that I feel missing from a lot of live electronic music and club music is the energy that that you can get when you're DJing and stuff. You can do, like, you know, spin backs and play whatever songs and stuff. But with live thing, you've only got 2 hands, and there's so many things that you could be doing, and it's like, do you want to enjoy it more than them, or do you want them to enjoy it more than you? And like, how much work do you want to be doing, and how much of it's pre-composed, and how much of it are you coming up with on the spot? So it's like, I like that challenge.
Yeah, and there's so many. I really like the conversation of the live set versus the DJ set sometimes, because it's just super it's super crazy and like so subjective, and like there are some nights that I want to see like a live set and just be able to sit there with my arms crossed and just nod my head and just like witness and watch what someone is doing live, because there's a beauty in that. But then there's other times where I'm like, I just want like improv, I want full crazy energy and that sort of thing. And finding that blurred line between having both of them at once is, I think, could be super cool. And another point,
and then like the last show I did, someone came up to me after and was like, cool DJ set. And I was like,
sure,
I don't know, confused. I don't know, I don't have the answers. I'm just I'm still working on it.
Exactly. And also you sort of hinted at like you're not necessarily always listening to club music. So just talking about the tracks on No Knowledge as well, who inspired by one of them. Also as well, you said that you could be writing pop music. You didn't know if you're going to write pop music or club music. What other sort of stuff do you like listening to, and how does that influence, say, how you engage with the club record or how you make a dance record?
Yeah, I love listening to city pop, which is, as you probably know, all the Japanese 80s stuff and early 90s that came out during the economic bubble. So it was all blissful and worry-free and kind of naive, but they were all listening to, like 50s and 60s rock and roll and pop then. So it's like all the, how the 50s were cool in the 80s, and then the 80s were cool now, that sort of thing. So yeah, just I love listening to city pop, which is really over the top, saturated, overproduced, but yeah, it's really nice, and that makes me want to learn chords and stuff, and then I want to start putting the chords into my music, and then all of a sudden I'm making like EDM. So the chords don't really belong in some of the music that I DJ. So yeah, it's kind of confusing sometimes, and that's what this release, No Knowledge with River Yarra, let me put some like more harmonic stuff out. But yeah, like it's also kind of leftovers and of the idea and continuing the idea from playing in the band Retiree with a few of my good friends. So some of the song ideas there on No Knowledge started back then.
And I was going to ask this at the end, but I think just listening to your yarns and the way you talk there's a lot on your plate constantly. Like you were in Retiree, Transit State, putting out records, listening to test presses, making techno with, tools. How do you balance all that? Do they all interconnect, do you think, or is there a beauty in them all being separate, sort of, even though still facets of the same sort of music industry or dance scene?
I don't know. I'd just try and have fun with all of it, and it can like you can stress out and stuff, but then it's like, what's the point of doing it? Like, you just got to remind yourself to keep it fun. That's a pretty diplomatic answer, isn't it? So
it's true though. Yeah, it's yeah, just do what you vibe, pretty much.
Yeah. I ran off with that. What? So ask me again.
So it's all good. No, you answered it perfectly. It's fine. So your debut sort of release was with King Rowdy, We Stan. And Pelvis a lot, and what I've seen, it's a lot about family, even though there are, say, designated members, pretty much. If you're engaged with Pelvis, you're also a part of Pelvis as a sort of culture. So I just want to know, like, how did River Yarra come a part of the Pelvis family? When did you and him cross paths?
Hold on, Parry, sorry.
yeah, sorry about the break there again, friends. Just talking about how Riviera became a part of the Pelvis family and crew, and why he was perfect for the No Knowledge release with you.
Yeah, that I can't even remember when we became friends now. I think when I first was coming to Melbourne a lot to play, he was just always around, and he probably has he can probably remember it better than I do. I don't know. There's a cool story there. We just started hanging out heaps, and because we both like nerding out and similar music, we just thought, oh, Nick came up with the idea of putting out a split release. So it happened super quick, just over Facebook chat. We organized it and got it out. And Elliot from Pelvis did the artwork of the 3D gnome. And we're doing remixes of each other's tracks now as well, as like a little extension of the release. They'll be out soon.
Yeah, and I feel like, and obviously talking on the design stuff, but even the music as well and the artwork behind the music, and just based off all your guys' socials, nature's obviously a big part of like the Pelvis brand, both musically as well with this EP, I think, and the artworks and the visual direction too. And from biking as well, like the kings of the cycle. Where do you think that comes from, or how does nature inspire you musically or creatively, outside of the direct?
Yeah.
You know, it looks cool.
Well, we all surf. We're all really into surfing, even though we don't get as much time to do it anymore. Especially because I live in Melbourne and everyone's grown up. But yeah, we grew up surfing in Sydney, in Avalon. All of us who do Pelvis. So we were just all about going down the coast, getting a cheap Airbnb and going down searching for waves. So just like our favorite thing was getting up before the sunrise and going to catch some waves. So that's been a huge influence, just sitting in the ocean, waiting for waves and walking through bush tracks to get to the beach and stuff. I guess that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's definitely still my favorite thing to do. Just don't do it as much anymore, sadly.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know why, but that culture, like that meditative nature culture, is so ingrained in so much of Sydney underground dance for some reason, or like Australian underground dance, and like everybody universally just likes going on hikes and likes riding their bikes. It's weird, but it's there's got to be some philosophical like Venn diagram in terms of going to a club and going for a walk or going for a surf and swim. Because I think everyone I've
like
spoken
a PhD in that. Because how it's really common to hear tracks that have like ambient soundscapes in it. Australian birds and stuff are all pretty unique. There's a lot of cool sounds out there in Australia that are unique to put in music, but I never get sick of it. Like, as much as you hear a track start with that, like Australian rainforest sounds or something, or frogs or birds, it's still fresh.
Yeah.
And nice.
And I think Riviera can probably talk more on it. We have an obsession with frogs too for some reason. And like, I love frogs. And when we did the Parry Talks t-shirts, the first set, I don't know if you caught them. It was just Parry Talks with like a cute little frog underneath it.
Sick.
Yeah. And I think that's just an extra element of that. Like, whether we know it or not, or whether we're doing it for a laugh or not, there's something intrinsic there, I think, between like how Australian environment influences, our dance culture, which is super cool.
It's sick. Yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely an Australian thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like our answer to like the industrial of Europe. It's like, no, we have we have nice beaches and
we're very lucky. Yeah, super nice nature around us.
Yeah, and we've already hinted at it now. Pelvis isn't just like a record label or a fashion line, what do you think the pillars of Pelvis are? Like whether it's like practical in terms of fashion, music, events, or like maybe even more conceptual, philosophical, as just a way to sum it up as best as you can.
Yeah, it's always been hard to sum up what pelvis is. Can say though that it's changed and changing still. Like it started as an idea for a party, and then it became the party. But then the music and the clothes kind of came from that, and then the party would be where all of it came together. People wearing pelvis and us playing pelvis music or DJing, and then making this space that was pelvis, transforming Good God into something weird. And now the energy is kind of carried into the internet. Like now the Instagram and even the Bandcamp and the website are like where the energy, where the output is, the platform for it. But yeah, it's impossible to.
Yeah.
It's just us, like all five of us in combination, just putting out what we want to do.
Yeah. And I think that, and it's something that definitely I've taken on from the brand. And I think a lot of people coming up now, in Sydney, especially, because just put out from my knowledge, and you've done it there as well. You like a lot of people aren't putting labels on what their music companies are. So I don't think I'll ever call Parry Talks a media organization, because I do have ideas for VAs. I have ideas for events as well, and that sort of thing. And a lot of people are scared to say, "Oh, we're a party, we're a booking agent, or we're this and we're that," because
Totally.
there's so much more that can be found through it. And like the community organization is like the new buzzword, I think, because that's what people are focused on, and that's a good thing for our culture anyway. I think.
Yeah, you don't want to trap yourself. You kind of think of it like you're creating like your brand is like it has its own culture.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's kind of the most important thing is to have your own like culture and values and stuff. I don't know. I didn't study business.
I actually am anyway. Yeah, so let's go back. Like the first idea for Pelvis was a party. What was that party? What was the first party like? How was it putting that together?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd ask. The vision started, I was living in Melbourne with Nick, and 3 other guys were up in Sydney. And so in our group chat, we would just talk about whatever parties we were going to. And we just had a lot of ideas we wanted to see. A lot of clubs we went to, they might have had parties run by 1 or 2 people that didn't have the hands to make it whatever their full vision might have been. So we really wanted to transform the club. Like my first clubbing experience was going to Bang Gang at Club 77, which was like incredible. That was around 2005. And they would change the whole club, as well as play amazing music. So we just wanted to do something like that, where you'd enter the room, and ideally we'd like build a club from scratch and have investors and stuff. Like we had to come to a compromise, but we got so lucky. We ended up doing it at Good God, because Jimmy and Hannah, who ran Good God, which was on Liverpool Street in Chinatown, they offered the club. And at first we were like, oh, there's other parties there. It'll, you know, we want to have a totally unique space to run our party. But then we realized how accommodating Jimmy and Hannah were for us to change the whole venue. We just went crazy with the tarp, and basically realized we could force everyone onto the dance floor just using tarp and hanging that up. So we'd kind of box in the dance floor a bit more, so it felt more cozy and people would be less self-conscious when dancing and stuff. And the smoke machine's a easy way to make it more comfortable as well. So the first few, we played a lot of Italo disco and like tracks, record stuff, a lot of old stuff, because me and Nick were going to Bamboo Music in Melbourne at the Mercat a lot in like 2010. So that was a great party. Bell Towers and Misha from Pam ran that together. And
Yeah.
I only went to a couple, but yeah, it was an amazing party, and the music was really, really good. So we just went ham with tarp and figured it out as we went, and we were lucky to have 5 of us doing it.
Yeah.
So we had enough hands to get it all done in the changeover time. After bands finished at 10, we'd get in and
Yeah.
open at 11, and people would start turning up at like 11:30 and 12, and it went till like 3 or 4. Then the lockouts happened, but we can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah.
Don't really want to talk about it.
Let's stick to the glory period. We'll say that.
Yeah.
Because and like I say this to people, and people gasp, and people, you know, look down upon me. But I never went to Good God. I'd never been, because it was closed before I turned 18.
Yeah.
So like I hear so many legacy tales about, you know, and Andy said that every Friday she'd finish radio at FBI and she'd go there with Johnny Liu every single week, just because like that's what it was. And like she didn't even have to drink, she didn't have to do anything. She'd just go and watch and like just absorb in the culture.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And
it was so good. The people and the music were always sick.
Yeah, and
they built that, like it was like a Spanish like dancing club before that. I think it was called La Campana. And then they took it over and just completely gutted it and redid the whole place. It was such a special thing.
Yeah, it's insane. I can't believe I missed it, but it's crazy to think that I came up in like the DIY, like the renegade sort of thing, where I've probably been to more warehouse parties and open air car park parties than I have club nights, which is weird to think about. And like how that's influenced my taste and that sort of thing is super intricate too. But back to that, I think that period of time was probably there's probably a lot of learning involved, like for you, I don't know, from every club night I'm involved in, like every time you throw a club night, you know, to do something better the next time. So I just want to know, like, what was like the craziest sort of idea or concept or theme that you did throw a Good God, and like just the story of that night, like, because I heard stories about an underwater party that I think went off.
Yeah, there was a few really good ones we did. Cars was really cool. We had like the back of the car was the DJ booth, and there was like an exhaust pipe which we shoved the smoke machine down. So I had like on a CDJ burnout sound. So every now and then I'd be like, and the exhaust pipe would pump the smoke out. We did, we wanted to do dogs, but never got around to it. A couple of other really good ones were the underwater party. We did it twice. It was so good. Where we had like fishnet on the ceiling with a lot of like underwater toys in there and beach balls and blow up dolphins and stuff. And we would do, along with the theme, we would do sound effects, because we hardly use the CDJs. We kind of restricted ourselves to playing records, which shouldn't be a selling point of any party, I don't reckon, you know, vinyl only. But a lot of the music we played, we could only really find it on vinyl. So the CDJs were pretty unused. So we'd just load up sound effects on that and use underwater party was dolphin sounds and bubbles. And we did a fashion TV themed, you know, that cable channel, FTV. So we put up posters and everything, and we got contacted by some vodka companies to sponsor it. So we just said yes, because they thought it was a legit fashion TV party. And then they pulled the sponsorship the day of, because they realized it was just a piss take. Another one, we did a Halloween party, which was cool. I made like a little bedroom scene in the corner. It was kind of like an art installation that had like bedside table. We would just go ham at Vinnie's and bring as much as we could into the club. And a bed that kind of looked like a gruesome horror movie scene. And someone got hold of the pillow and exploded it, and there was feathers all through the club. So I think Jimmy was pretty annoyed at me that night. And egg was another great theme, just egg. We had like a huge egg. I should have had photos ready for you, but it was like a plywood egg with just the face hole in it, and so everyone was just getting photos of their face through the egg.
I don't think I've ever been to a proper themed party. You've got to bring them back for the
Well,
for the
yeah, we didn't
children.
start them themed. We didn't want it to. We didn't want the theme idea to take over. We just wanted Pelvis to have a strong experience that wasn't themed. Like I think that the tarp, the grunt. If you go to Bunnings, you find grunt. That's the Pelvis signature theme is grunt. Just hanging up tarp.
So did the fashion stuff come in just as a consequence because of what your friends are into, or was there like a deeper strategy to it, or was it just by coincidence that they wanted to do that and Pelvis was already up and running and it felt right for the brand and that sort of thing?
Exactly it. Nick and Elliot and Felix have always been particularly into that. So we, after the first party or two, Nick just whipped up a t-shirt and we put it on up for sale, and it just went from there. They just were like, oh cool, we'll do these different variations and then more prints and then not just t-shirts anymore. And it's just like the whole Pelvis is just a platform for us to put out what we love doing. So
that's cool.
And it's just kept going. We're lucky and they're very, very good at what they do.
And I think it's brilliant because it's still like that, the initial essence in those sort of initial club nights from my more recent engagement with the Pelvis sort of brand and the Pelvis parties as well. It's still there, like their unique experience. Like when a lot of times you'll be like you'll ask your friends like, where are you going tonight? And you name the DJ you're seeing. But the Pelvis parties I've been to, people be like, where are you going tonight? It's like, oh, I'm going to a Pelvis party. And it's like, that's the identifier rather than it being like, oh, this and that's playing, or I'm going to Frida's to see Body Promise. It's like, I'm going to the Pelvis party to see.
Yeah, we didn't do that deliberate. That was just, that happened naturally because we didn't want to put ourselves as the selling point, like as the talent, or like we didn't want to make it about us. We didn't want people to rock up and feel like they had to watch us play. We wanted people to turn up and know that there was going to be good music and good people, but not have to stand there and face the booth. And because then the next step is people come and hang in the booth, because it becomes this whole scene, like this whole VIP booth cronies, which is fine too. But we would like go to so much effort to obscure ourselves. We had the whole booth shrouded in like army camo material, or like butcher strips of the plastic, whatever we could find to make it very obvious that you weren't supposed to watch us.
And I think
kind of also, sorry, it also became it also semi backfired. It meant that what we didn't really translate well if we got booked at other parties. So we'd get booked at other events and stuff, but it was kind of like, well, do we call it Pelvis, or is that the party? And then it's also been a really good thing because it's like everything is just like Pelvis Records, Pelvis clothing.
And I think that a good thing about the Pelvis brand is there's a lot of anonymity to it. So like a lot of people be really heavily engaged in Pelvis and will go see Pelvis DJs and have no idea that they're seeing Pelvis DJs, if that makes sense. Or if they saw, you guys hanging around the club before or during the club night, even though they know and they probably buy every t-shirt and have bought every record, it's not necessarily like they wouldn't necessarily know who you are or who the crew is. And I think that that's a testament to that sort of thing, where it's not about you guys, it's about the party and the community as well. You sort of see the same faces at every Pelvis party anyway, and it's like, the same scenes as well. And like, and I think there's a beauty in that. So it's more about the community and knowing like that you're going to get a certain energy, a certain community, certain crowd, rather than being like, I want to see Ryan Powderly and Nick Mez DJ from 10 to 11. It's not that. Yeah, it's super cool. And there's still that essence as well in the parties now. Which like most recently as well, the Liquor Lozano Mr. Ho at the Lansdowne was like so much fun and super intimate. And like I couldn't even like I had no idea who you guys were before that and during that. And then my mate was just like, oh, that's who does it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like it's cool that's how it sort of, that's the business model. It's just like we're Pelvis, everything's Pelvis, because yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's an experience.
Exactly. Yeah, and back on it's that relates directly to like the whole community model and that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it now as well, because how did releasing records sort of start? Because it obviously wasn't the first idea for what Pelvis was, and that first release is so iconic as Dance Freak. Just that dun
Oh
dun
yeah.
dun dun dun. I think is some of the most iconic stuff ever. So just talk through like building that and like making that track, and just like
Have you seen the film clip?
yeah, of course, and just like leaning
Yeah.
into the world of like vinyl and distribution and records and stuff.
Yeah. It was always an idea. Like I wanted to make club music since I first went out, but took me a while to get there. Like um, Dance Freak kind of, and for me, it's like just in a record. It's like all of our Sydney parties and all the people that were there and all the music we played in just one record, and the kind of other artists who we were getting along with at the time, like Nazaki, Morgrab, DJ House. It actually took me so long to finish that track, and still keep it like it's sounded like it was made up on the spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it just had a few records we were playing at every party, like Mike Dunn, this Mike Dunn remix of Armando was a huge influence for the sound of the drums. I forget what the track's called. Mike's Done, Get It Done mix or something. Armando might be like 231 or something. Anyway, yeah, just like early Chicago house, and then that classic like dun 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 dun. That Korg, it's the Korg M1, classic 90s sound, like the Show Me Love patch.
Yeah.
And yeah, then the video clip was just all the handheld camera footage from the parties mashed together. But yeah, it took a lot longer than it sounds like it might have. It took me like a year to finish that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And then the DJ Nazaki remix, which is wild. He was like, "Oh, I would chase him up like, have you finished it? How's it going?" And he's like, "I'm waiting for this one Yamaha keyboard, this sampling keyboard to come up on Yahoo Auctions." It took him like 6 months to get hold of one, and then turned over the remix in like 24 hours. It's a nuts remix.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like, and I think if you drop that at any party, even now, there's like an identity with that song that's just like, this is just, and everyone knows it as well. It's that one Pelvis track that like everyone just froths. And I have so many people from the outside, like not necessarily in, you know, a circle or go out a lot, but they'll still run that track and they'll be like, who is Pelvis? Like, what's Pelvis? I'm like, oh, it's too long a story. Not even I know. And that sort of thing. And
not even I know.
Yeah, now I do. I think that's something super interesting as well, is like you were working a lot of just like innovation and ideas, and like whatever sort of idea came to your head, you just tried to execute it. Obviously there is probably a bit more planning and strategy now, but is that still at the essence of what Pelvis is, do you think, now, in terms of your strategy, just evolving and innovating with ideas?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just whatever ideas we get. It'd be great to have more parties, but a couple of the guys live in New York and one in Sydney and two of us in Melbourne. So it's rare that we're all together. Really, the group chat is where it all lives at the moment. But yeah, like we're going to do more parties and more records and more clothes. It's the way forward at the moment, I think. But yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's just talk about, you brought forward Tools 3 as well, almost because of COVID, but to support the artists as well. I just want you to like talk through that decision as well, bringing the compilation forward digitally, and just like why you did that.
Well, it's as simple as like the vinyl process is so lengthy. And especially when you're in Australia, being in a different time zone to Europe, where everything is getting made, you wake up and you've got an email, and then you write back, and then you won't get a response till it's like a 24-hour turnaround between emails. And then especially when the process takes like 3 months between making the order and getting the stock out, it's really lengthy. So yeah, when we were all found ourselves in lockdown and we had a few records lined up, we were just like, why don't we just put this out now? Like it's we need to get that coin to the artists who have been so patient, because it's like, yeah, you get releases backed up, and then it's like the 3-month process, but that's on top of like the artists getting you the tracks in the first place as well, and then fitting into the release schedule. So it can sometimes be like a year or two until stuff's released, which sucks for the artist. Yeah, so digital releases are way quicker and more exciting, and we got the artists the takings from that ASAP.
Yeah, and I just want to talk about more like your style and building VAs. When you make the decision, right, we're going to start building the next tools or whatever sort of project you're doing. Like, what's the process of that in terms of finding the artists you want on it? Is it just using your personal relationships? Do you like keeping it in-house and personal, or do you just dig and pick anything really that you're vibing?
Yeah.
What's the process there for you?
Yeah, when we started at Pelvis Records, we just decided it's going to be a label for us to put our friends' music out on. So we still stick to that. We don't often reach out and cold call artists and be like, love your stuff, send us anything. It does happen sometimes, but mostly it's just like we'll have chats going on, email or Facebook chat or Instagram chat.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, cool. By the way, send us any tracks. So yeah, it's just like music that our friends make that we think should be released.
Yeah,
it's our guiding idea.
It's beautiful. Post COVID-19, we've already sort of hinted at it, but and you've got some EPs and records coming as well. Where do you see the Pelvis project going? Is there a certain facet or pillar that you want to aim to improve, innovate, highlight, streamline, you name it really? What do you think the focus is going to be going forward?
Lots more releases. I'm hoping a lot of vinyl makes a comeback after this stage 3 at the moment. Like I'm hoping that once things ease or whatever we move into, vinyl will have a place and have a bit of a comeback. So on top of that, I'm also hoping to put out a lot more digital stuff, because it's just quicker and easier and more suited to 2020. But yeah, lots more music, lots more stuff from me as well, Transit State. I want to do I've got some ideas for the kind of parties I'd want to do, but I don't know how parties will look going into the future. We'll see. Have to respond to that reality. And obviously more clothes and stuff. I don't know. I'd love to go to New York.
Nice.
To the party
in 3 years.
Yeah, in a long time.
Perfect. That was, I don't even know how long we're speaking for there. We've been speaking for, because I just felt I got lost there for a second.
Me too.
To sort of wrap it all up, and I asked these 2 questions to everybody I have on. I just want you to shout out your favorite mix, like whether it's a Boiler Room, you name it. Just drop us with a must listen to mix, a goat of yours.
Other guys would be able to answer this better than I could. They're all about mixes. I still listen to the same mixes I was listening to years ago. So Daniele Baldelli Zanzibar mix, if you can find it, is something that really got me excited about doing a party. That's like a really good mix of cosmic kind of music. So all sorts of weird stuff in there. And lucky to see him play in Sydney at a Vivid festival in like 2019 11 or 12, which was so sick. It was like the first time he'd got on a plane in decades because he had a fear of flying. And Steve Pabs, who ran Modular Records, brought him out. And
Wow.
yeah, he played at the Opera House bar and it was sick. So that was special. That was around the time I was listening to that mix too.
Mm.
So yeah, Daniele Baldelli Zanzibar mix, I'll have to say. There's so many mixes these days. I've got to catch up. Like I screenshot, anytime I see someone post like a mix, I'll screenshot it. So my camera roll is just screenshots of mixes and releases that I haven't got around to listening to.
I don't know, personally, I think mixes are tough to listen to. I can do like a boiler room or a live sort of watch of a set. There's something else to that, but just like I listen to mixes when I want to work, and if someone gets a bit too turbo, I'm like, oh, next. Sorry, it hurts my ears. I can't focus while I'm working to,
Yeah, it's funny trying to find the time to listen to them as well. Like, I don't know, a lot like my friends who do graphic design or work retail or have the time to put it on in the background. I envy that a lot because, I can't do that at my job, unfortunately. And when I get home, I want to work on my own music, so I can't listen to other music.
And finally, the final question, the most awkward question I think of all.
Oh dear.
Nick nominates someone to come on who needs their story told, etc.
Oh, I'd like to hear River Yarra's side to the Gnome Knowledge release and the nature in Australian music, Australian electronic music. Yeah, I needed him here for that part of our chat, so I nominate him.
I feel like we could have a 2.5 hour conversation on nature, not even touch music, just talk about frogs and scaly things.
Yeah, we should do a 3-way Zoom.
Maybe episode 21, who knows?
Yeah.
We'll do just a round table. Perfect. Parry Talks, episode 20. Also as well, next time there's a Pelvis party in Sydney, if you've listened this far and you find me at that Pelvis party and you quote this interview or say something about Parry Talks, I'll buy you 2 drinks. That's on me.
The discount code.
The discount code, Parry Talks. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
No worries.
It's been sick.